Okay, so we wanted to see how relationships with non-binary individuals would impact people's views on gender pronouns. Our research question was, how does exposure to and familiarity with individuals who identify as non-binary affect response patterns to scenarios in which people are misgendered? So we basically wanted to see if people who were more familiar with non-binary individuals advocated more for the use of gender-affirming language, and if people who didn't know any non-binary individuals didn't advocate for use of gender pronouns as much for that reason. So we had a lot of ideas for our research question in terms of like maybe where people had traveled or where they were from, but we thought that that would impact or have too much variation. So we kind of limited it down to the research question we have now. And then we tried to use really specific scenarios that would actually occur in the real world to get people's actual opinions. Then we included a check question to define what non-binary means, to make sure that people were paying attention and like knew what that meant. And then we started out with 38 responders and then limited it down to 31 people. And we filtered out like duplicate IP addresses and people that didn't complete the survey all the way through, and responses that were before 12:30 on May 20th. And then we started out with 4 categories for how many non-binary individuals they knew: 1 to 2 people, no people, 3 to 5 people, and 6 or more people that were non-binary. But we narrowed it down to either knowing or not knowing non-binary individuals because there wasn't a lot of response between the 4 categories. And then we also had a question about how close the person was to the non-binary individual, but that ended up not providing as much variation as we thought, so we took that question out.
Our first survey question is: James is on a high school sports team that is entirely male. James identifies as non-binary and uses they/them pronouns, and told the whole team and the coach that they identified as such. The coach of the team often refers to the team as the boys and the fellas. How would you view the coach's use of these terms? We gave them in a scale of extremely, very, moderately, and slightly to not at all offensive to answer the survey question by. The next survey question features Arnold. Arnold works at a law firm and uses they/them pronouns. Gerald, Arnold's boss, often refers to Arnold as he and him, despite Arnold announcing their preferred pronouns in a company-wide email. How would you view Gerald's behavior? And we gave him the same scale of offensiveness to rate the question upon. So this is the survey respondents. We found that 17 out of the 31, 17 had no non-binary acquaintances, and 14 had 1 or more non-binary acquaintances. And this is the view of the average offensiveness rating to both the James and the Arnold question. We will see that the James question, there was a more uniform approach, as 75% viewed the question or rated the question as not at all or slightly offensive, and only about 7% rated the question as extremely or very offensive. The Arnold question, on the other hand, had a more listed a more broad approach across all categories. The extremely offensive was about 16% of respondents, and then not at all offensive was about 23%. We took the average offensiveness rating. We'll see in the James question, as we hypothesized, the people with 1 or more non-binary acquaintances rated the offensiveness of the question slightly higher, but we did not see that effect in the Arnold question. We instead saw that people with no non-binary acquaintances rated the question slightly more offensive, at around in between slightly and moderately offensive.
Yeah, so just as a summary of those results, the number of individuals someone knows that identify as non-binary turned out to be kind of a weak predictor and had little to no effect on response patterns. Contrary to our hypothesis, in the Arnold scenario, people who said that they knew no non-binary individuals actually rated it as more offensive than people who said they did know more than one. And so we thought that the disparity between the two, like the average of the James question, was a lot lower than the average of the Arnold question. We think that this is because when someone is explicitly misgendered in an individual setting, people will probably be more sensitive to that and find that to be more, personally offensive than someone being lumped into a group, into a broader gendered expression. I think people, when it's in a group setting, I think people are saying it's a little less of an offense. Going forward, if we wanted to do this study again, we would probably try and find a stronger predictor, ideally a larger sample size to get more variability. We probably also want to control for factors such as age, and maybe if we could even narrow it down to like a location or a population of a specific population like college students or professionals or some other kind of way to narrow it down to see more variability among that. I think that would be best. But, yeah, that's about it. Thanks.